Even when you hear people like Kathy Wood from ARK coming out and you know, trying to predict the price of Bitcoin, that's becoming exhausting. It's like, okay, so you're going to predict the price again, but people are paying more attention to the TradFi space.
Yeah, well said. It's like, yes, Bitcoin may do well, but there's a lot of interesting things being built outside of Bitcoin, right?
Yeah.
Stablecoins, tokenization, DeFi. This episode is brought to you by iTrust Capital. iTrust Capital allows you to invest in crypto as well as precious metals like gold and silver via an IRA. And this gives you huge tax advantages. So you can invest in over 90 crypto assets, including Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP, Solana, and many more. You also get access to stablecoins such as Circle's USDC and Ripple's RLUSD. And as it relates to precious metals, you can invest in gold and silver, and these are the physical assets. So you're not investing in paper gold and silver. So on this platform, you can redeem the gold and silver if you choose to, and not many platforms offer that. Now, the big advantage to investing via iTrust Capital's IRA is the huge tax advantages. Many of you know you incur capital gains taxes when you sell at a gain. Well, you can minimize the effect of some of that by doing it via an IRA, especially if you have a long-term view on crypto as well as precious metals. And you can buy and sell crypto and precious metals 24/7. It's low cost and no monthly fee. So this is a great option to get exposure to these two great asset classes. And in addition, they have a great custody solution. It's called Premium Custody Account. So it uses institutional grade crypto custody, such as Coinbase Prime, which BlackRock leverages. iTrust also uses Fidelity Digital Assets as well as Fireblocks, and it's a closed loop system. So if someone hacks into your account, they can't withdraw funds. I believe this is the second safest way to custody your assets, right behind self-custody, where you control the private keys. And within the custody account, you could buy and sell 24/7. It's low fees. So this is a great option for custody of your assets, and you can sleep at night knowing that you're getting the institutional grade custodial services. So once again, two great products here from iTrust Capital, the IRA, where you can roll over your existing 401k or IRA to iTrust Capital's version, getting the huge tax advantages, and the institutional custody. And folks, if you sign up with my link at itrustcapital.com/go/thinkingcrypto, you could get a $100 funding bonus. I have an account with iTrust Capital, so I encourage you to go check out iTrust Capital, learn about their services, and see if it's right for you. Again, you can get a $100 funding bonus by signing up via my link, which is itrustcapital.com/go/thinkingcrypto. Link will be in the description. Hey folks, welcome into the Thinking Crypto podcast, Crypto Water Cooler Series. I'm Tony Edward.
And I'm Amanda Whitcroft.
And we're going to break down the latest and greatest as to what's happening in the crypto market. It's lots of news, Amanda, really huge items this week. So lots to dive into.
Yeah, let's do it.
So first up, yesterday, the DTCC, which is a powerhouse when it comes to markets and settlement and clearinghouse and much more, they announced they're partnering with the Stellar Foundation to tokenize assets on the Stellar blockchain. This is huge on many levels. One, you continue to see TradFi going all in on crypto and blockchain tech. And two, they're building on a public blockchain. And this is a major win because many years ago, many of these firms said, no, we're going to build our private version of the blockchain and no one else can use it. But now they're forced to use public chains.
Yeah, it's interesting. And really DTCC, it matters so much more, in my opinion, than Stellar. And for those listening that don't know what the DTCC is, it's the Depository Trust and Clearing Corporation, which they settle quadrillions of dollars in securities transactions annually. So when a company like this is experimenting with tokenization, again, like you mentioned, Tony, this just makes that the merger with TradFi and institutions, this is helping regulators and your asset managers. They're paying attention because this is just another added layer of trust.
Absolutely. And on the Stellar front, just our last episode, we talked about the island of Bermuda. They were looking to move their economy on chain with payments and much more. And they're doing that with Stellar. So Stellar is getting some momentum here. Usually you see the big headlines with Ethereum and Solana, but it's great to see these almost like a niche blockchain, if you want to put it that way. You know, it doesn't have the biggest PR or whatever it is, but it's getting adoption.
Yeah, and I really like too that when we had Mark Boyer on from Polygon Labs, he put it very eloquently of how his block, the Polygon blockchain is they are niche in their respective of what they're focused on. Prior to the FTX collapse, it was enterprise clients with NFT marketplaces and just the Web3 metaverse and whatever programs that they were focused on. So I like that blockchains are starting to specialize as it should be because we need that healthy competition, because you keep hearing figures like Kevin O'Leary and, which blockchain's going to win. And I don't think that that's the right mindset. I think we need different chains to specialize because they can't do everything well. I think it's really important to have that specialty blockchain for a specific function.
Yeah, key statement you put there, you just mentioned, they can't do everything. It's not possible for one chain to rule them all, right?
Yeah.
A la Lord of the Rings or Game of the Thrones or whatever it may be. There needs to be multiple chains, just as there is multiple websites and multiple mobile apps and multiple car makers, right? There needs to be competition that's healthy for the market. And to your point, no one blockchain can handle every transaction in the world, whether it be payments, movement of information. It's not possible. So it's great that we're going to have a multi-chain world. There's going to be interoperability. And look, some of these chains may target specific regions in the world or countries or industries, right? So that's really, really great.
Yeah, I agree, and actually, I say a name like Kevin O'Leary, right, who's a billionaire and who has a show like Shark Tank, where he is championing young entrepreneurs and healthy competition. So I find it interesting that he's of the mindset of one blockchain and what it's like. No, I don't think that's how you produce a more trusted industry. Like we need more good actors, not bad actors, in this space to continue the progress that we're making.
Absolutely. And look, I think Kevin may be talking his book a bit, right? He is an
Yeah.
investor. So sometimes you got to make sure you catch the angle this person's coming from, right?
Yeah,
Not saying he's doing anything bad. Just look, as human beings, we talk our books, we talk about the things we like, but we want to make sure when we're approaching blockchain and investing that we have an open mind and we're looking at all angles.
absolutely.
Now, on the front of tokenization, the SEC, the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission, pushed back almost their deadline for getting tokenized equities, stocks guidance out there. This surprised a lot of folks, but I was talking about it in the general podcast that I think this is good. I think they should crawl before they walk and before they run. They want to make sure to get this right because we don't want any collapses. We don't want anything to have a major failure. What do you think about that?
No, I think it's becoming a geopolitical race now for sure. And, as the United States, we risk repeating the same mistake as we did with internet innovation. Build it domestically, regulate it ambiguously, and then watch parts of the industry move offshore. And we don't want to do that here. So I agree. The issue really isn't whether tokenized equities should be regulated. It's whether the framework is really fast enough to, remain competitive while other jurisdictions or entities are moving.
Yeah, and there are companies already doing it. We just talked about the DTCC, but the guidance needs to come from the SEC, and obviously they need to make sure to get it right and it's buttoned up well. But they also, I think, need to make sure they put guardrails in place because yes, you want to foster innovation, but the balance is protecting consumers and making sure you're not setting up, some sort of failure that we think about every facet of this infrastructure and we cross our T's and dot our I's so that there's not a problem later on. But I'm sure they're going to put something out, later this year. But I'm thinking they did this, and based on Hester Peirce's, comments, they're trying to be cautious here.
Yeah, I think, and you have to be. There's a reason your institutions are suddenly obsessed with this. It's not a niche crypto experiment. It really has the potential to reshape capital markets entirely. You're talking about 24/7 stock trading, and instant settlements, as we know. So it's when you have this, but the SEC's hesitation. It makes sense from their perspective. It's investor protections and custody and things like this. And when you're dealing with anything involving the government, we're dealing with snail's pace, and so when you're dealing with the institutions who are practically partnered with the government, you do run into the compliance and the regulatory frameworks where, yet things are going to take time without even need. So it's not really a matter of your opinion of, oh, it's going to take time, or, let's speed this up. It's just the fact that things will slow down because of this industry.
Yeah. And, my worry, one of the things I think about is one of these institutions, I'm not necessarily talking about the larger ones, but there are a lot of people getting involved with tokenization. They don't do it right. They don't actually have the assets they're creating a tokenized version for. And then that sets up a house of cards, right? Some sort of FTX like
Yeah.
collapse. And that would be detrimental and it would set us back, right? It's like we've taken some steps forward, but then with something like that happening, we take 5 steps back. And that really, really is not what we want. So I hope the SEC gets it right and they make sure that everyone that's getting involved with tokenization is doing it right. Because if you're going to move all these assets on chain,
Yeah.
that is something you don't want to take lightly.
Yeah, exactly. It's nice to see, though, that tokenization is becoming less of a buzzword, because I think you even said, I remember when it was all over real estate, and I would ask people to describe how they were tokenizing real estate. And I never really got a poignant answer where I understood it. It was always kind of cryptic. And I even found that people themselves didn't understand it, but they wanted to be part of it. Then you had Larry Fink, who was very big on the tokenization thing. So, BlackRock, Franklin Templeton, Robinhood, you had all these huge institutions come into this. And so that alone tells you this isn't some buzzword anymore. This is really becoming part of the framework. And I am happy to see that.
Yeah, it's certainly going to change markets. You mentioned 24/7. And then for the first time in human civilization and history, we will have truly global markets. Some
Yeah.
people may say, wait a minute, what about gold, Tony? That existed. Well, yes, but you can't track gold real time. You can't verify the supply real time.
Yeah.
Central bank, this person says I have 8 tons of gold in my storage. Well, how do I know that? Right.
Right.
So this is where you need those intermediaries coming in, and then it's on the blockchain, but you need the infrastructure offline, so to speak, to verify and have that consensus that, yes, Amanda says she has 10 tons of gold. She does have it, right? Right
Yeah.
now, it's not connected. It's not blockchain based. And don't get me wrong, there are people tokenizing gold, but we got to get to that point, and the verification is so important. In addition to the blockchain opening it up to the global market.
Yeah, it's a really good point.
Um, we have to talk about the market conditions because we are seeing Bitcoin have a pullback. And this week, BlackRock's Bitcoin ETF IBIT, there was a lot of outflows. In fact, on one of the days, there was a $1.3 billion block that was sold, and has a lot of people worried. Obviously, there's still the macro factors of the Iran war,
Yeah.
and Bitcoin is kind of tumbling right now, heading to about 70K. So it looks like we may be correcting. Hopefully we can see a bounce soon.
I hope so. I kind of predicted this. I think there's also a lot of, crypto Twitter. I hate to say that is in some way influencing the market. Michael Saylor's coming out with things that are just kind of controversial to say the least. And I hate to say it, but I'm not surprised to see it kind of bounce back. I also think this whole narrative, when people first entered crypto, it was through Bitcoin. Everybody, let's face it, this was the
Yeah.
OG of how everyone kind of entered this space. And with that narrative came the maximalist. It came from the community. It came from crypto Twitter. And it's interesting because I think now we need to kind of pull away from the maximalism narrative and messaging that we've learned, if you have been in this space for a long time, because I think that's, again, for example, Ethereum may not dominate intention cycles anymore, but institutions overwhelmingly trust it. So we have to kind of look at those things and say, is it good to be a Bitcoin maxi anymore? It was always this proud statement to say, oh, I know that Bitcoin's not crypto. It doesn't function like that. It's different. And that was kind of a rite of passage that, oh, you must have been in this space for a long time. And I think I hope we're coming away from that.
Yeah, definitely agree with that. And I've been saying it for years as well that this market is much more than Bitcoin. Yes, is Bitcoin the lead dog in the market? And, we're still a young market where we need to mature and, some other coins and things need to take the lead. Yes, but I think we'll eventually get there. But to your point, there needs to be less maximalism and it needs to be less focus on Bitcoin only because that's been dominating for years. And then you got guys like Saylor pushing that, right? Bitcoin only. And it's like, no, the institutions may be holding Bitcoin in an ETF, but they're building on ETH and Solana and Stellar and all these other.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and especially with TradFi being the big player now, I think stablecoins may ultimately become the more disruptive, tool than Bitcoin itself because they are directly, touch payments, settlement, global dollar access, and again, that's where it's so funny. At the beginning of this industry, Bitcoin was positioned as this hedge against fiat, and it was supposed to be like come away from the system, and that's why there was so much speculation. It's like how can you undo what the traditional legacy system that we've known for centuries. And now so I do think because of the rise of stablecoins, Bitcoin's kind of, and again, that's where the market is seeing it. Even when you hear people like Kathy Wood from ARK coming out and, you know, trying to predict the price of Bitcoin, that's becoming exhausting. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, so you're going to predict the price again, but people are paying more attention to the TradFi space.
Yeah, well said. It's like, yes, Bitcoin may do well, but there's a lot of interesting things being built outside of Bitcoin, right?
Yeah.
Stablecoins, tokenization, DeFi, and it's so funny. TradFi almost they're like, yeah, we have some Bitcoin, but look at all the cool things we're building on these different chains, and it doesn't include Bitcoin, right? It'll be Ethereum, Solana, Avalanche, Stellar, and much more, even the XRP Ledger. And it's like Bitcoin, the Bitcoin maxis are like struggling with that. It seems like they're like getting angry, and you see the frustration coming out on crypto Twitter.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think then that too also affects the markets for sure.
Um, One of the things we're seeing, and this may be a symptom of the bear market, is that there's some capitulation on the Ethereum front. One of the Bankless co-founders penned the article, "I sold all my ETH." And it's like, I sit back and I'm like, I've been here since 2016. It's just so funny. It happens every bear market. Someone gives up and there's a big narrative, it's over. Yet ETH is getting the most adoption. And it's usually the first blockchain a lot of these institutions launch on. So this is where I think people who are only focused on price, right? And don't get me wrong, price is important. I have ETH in my portfolio, but
Yeah.
also there's a cyclicality to markets, and we are in a bear market, and it's so funny to see the capitulation that's happening.
Yeah. And I think too, markets, they reward excitement before infrastructure. This is just historically what they do. And, but I think the sentiment is weak for a lot of reasons. I think the price underperformance, like you've just pointed out, relative to Bitcoin and Solana, you've got a lot of like the layer two fragmentation confusion. You have a lack of like really just simple retail narrative. And so and then of course the meme coin speculative volume that rotates everywhere so if but Ethereum is still, like I said, that getting away from that maximalist narrative, it is quietly winning where institutions care. So I don't, if you do pay attention to crypto Twitter, yes, it's not great, but I think it is there's an important distinction to be made.
Yeah, and this is where, when it comes to investing, you got to have that macro view. And don't get me wrong, there's no guarantees when it comes to investing, right? Whether it be stocks, real estate, crypto, and so forth, because there are variables and factors that could change things. But if the base case is, the world is headed to a blockchain base rail system and infrastructure, and ETH is getting the most adoption, and institutions are choosing to start there, um, that's a strong thesis. And as an ETH holder myself, that's what I'm looking at. And the price right now doesn't bother me. I put my ETH into staking, I earn the rewards, and I have the long-term view. Now, if you're looking at the price every single day and you're looking at a minute, 1 minute chart, or the 30-minute chart, you're going to drive yourself nuts. And look, obviously we all want our investments to go up, but you got to have the macro view.
Yeah, agreed.
Now, On the topic of Bitcoin, circling back there was a new Bitcoin reserve bill that was introduced last week called the American Reserve Modernization Act, or ARMA. And this builds on the existing Bitcoin Act that was introduced by Senator Cynthia Lummis. And it's really, really great because it adds some additional provisions to allow for this to be law. Right? President Trump signed an executive order to establish a strategic Bitcoin reserve, but it's not law. And
Right.
this bill will help do that and also find a way for us to buy Bitcoin and digital assets for the stockpile. It has almost 16 or over 16 co-sponsors. So it's coming out the gates pretty hot here. And I don't know if this is going to pass this year because Clarity Act is the priority, but this looks like it has some legs.
Yeah, I agree. I think, and it is interesting because how many people now have come on, Thinking Crypto, where they've said, listen, whether Clarity gets passed or not is really, it's not going to make much of a difference. It does unlock a lot of capital for more innovation. But at the end of the day, it's status quo. We continue on as normal. And I think this executive legislation that Trump is both promising and doing, it's first of all, thank you. It's like, thank you for doing that. But it also shows you that, if Clarity, because I'm at a point now where I truly don't think Clarity will get past this year. That's just my
Mm.
personal opinion. And I think this helps for that delay.
Yeah, look, time is running out for the Clarity Act, man, and
Yeah.
we haven't heard anything since the markup phase was completed in the Senate Banking Committee, and it has so many more stages to go. And look, I know Patrick Witt, I believe he said he wants to get this done by July 4th, but I don't know, man. There's a lot of other things happening in the country and in the government and the Senate and trying to get bills through. So it's not looking good. So I kind of share your sentiment. And with the Bitcoin reserve bill, unless they find a really solid revenue neutral way to buy these assets without putting a burden on the taxpayers, it's going to be tough. They got to
Yeah.
come to the table and say, here's how we're going to do it. There's talks of repricing gold, but I don't know, man. In a midterm election year, it's going to be tough.
And then I think you pointed out something really the taxpayers. Stop going after the tax base. I think, that's the thing where even Spencer Pratt, which I'll bring, running against Karen Bass, it's as much as he's from the hills, and I think we can all kind of agree that he's a little bit of a nut personally. I think people are getting more behind the message that this sends to the opposing party is that if he wins, what a message that sends. You look at what's going on in New York City right now, in all your major cities, and Mamdani, and what's happening, and people are getting very annoyed with the tax base consistently being burdened by these agendas that are, people want. It's like there is nothing that's free, and anybody who believes that needs to learn history and also just the finance. Like, just that's not how things operate. And so I hope that's not what is going to happen.
Yeah, they really need to come up with a good solution and not put any burden, not even a little bit, on the taxpayers because people are going to be upset. And then with the really tough economic situation where the country's in right now, to try to sell this is going to be tough.
Yeah.
But if they come up with something that has nothing to do with the taxpayers and the taxpayer, the average Joe and Jane don't have to think twice about it, that would be great. Whether it be the repricing of a gold or something else.
Yeah. Well, and what do you think of, it used to be like in crypto, it's the biggest risk was always this hostile regulation because of all the bad actors that we've experienced. What do you think? Is it now maybe some inconsistency with regard to regulation because of how up and down? I mean, do you think that that's going to become the biggest risk now?
We're trying to get the bills passed.
Right.
Yeah, I think overall we're in a good place with the bill and moving forward because you have some bipartisan support. I think the big hurdle is the ethics piece. I think that's going to pop up very soon. Elizabeth Warren and these other folks are going to bring it up. And look, I understand because I have a little bit of agreement with them because I don't believe a president, a congressman, a senator, whoever should have the ability to launch a meme coin in these things. And I'm
Right.
probably going to get a lot of hate for that. But this is not a political statement. I'm an independent and I'm just looking at it from a neutral standpoint. And I wish Trump and his family weren't going ham on crypto right now, trying to see what, do whatever they can. But that's kind of like a sidebar, a sideshow thing. The actual technology is here to stay. It's going to change the world and markets. But unfortunately, politics is an ugly game. And I think Brad Sherman this week, the Shermanator, who is part of the crypto axis of evil or the anti-crypto army, he sent out a mailer, I think just this week, someone tweeted it, showing Trump is all crypto, fight against crypto. So he's using that angle. And look, the story is not about Trump. The story is about the technology. But unfortunately, politics and ethics is going to rear its ugly head.
Yeah, it's really the blurred lines between media and politics have become just horrible. But Warren, here's the woman who was anti-institution, anti-big banks, right? And now she's partnering with them to, to continue this anti-crypto messaging, and it's just she needs to go. I'm so sick
Yeah.
of her. She anything, and I do wonder sometimes, if Trump. I feel like there needs to be some positioning with regard to Trump's public profile on his championing crypto. Yeah, yes, thank you. Like, the executive things you're doing. But when he goes all in, I do worry about the bipartisan support because you do have Trump mania in this country, where if he so much supports something that's good, you have people who are just going against it simply because Trump is endorsing it. So I think we have to be aware of that and be very careful about what he's doing in this space. Because I agree with you. I don't like, how many hands he has in the pots of just making his family more wealthy. And I'm a capitalist, do what you have. But
Yeah.
it's just also why are you doing, why the meme coins for you and Melania? I
Melania.
just don't understand it.
Yeah, and I've said I'm fair. Like, if his sons want to have American Bitcoin, like run a
Yeah.
Bitcoin, that's totally fine because there's an actual, like you said, capitalistic setup there where they have to invest and they have
Yeah.
to build and they have to mine. But when you launch a meme coin,
Yeah.
I can't, right? And then your wife has a meme coin, and then it drops 97%, and all these things that really hurts the industry. And
Exactly.
I know I've spoken to many Republicans as well. They can't publicly say it, right? But they agree. Like, hey, that was whoever's advising him. They should not have done that. That really hurts the cause. But with that said, the bigger picture, the bigger fish to fry here is we got to get the United States in the leadership seat. So we got to get this bill through. And I'm thankful that there's some Democrats who are looking past that and recognizing, okay, look, this is for the future generations. This is for our prosperity as a country. We got to get this done. But I just wish Trump would calm it down, man. Wait till the Clarity Act is passed and then, go ham again.
Yeah, because he does play into the political theater as well. And both sides are guilty of that. Whether you're a Republican or Democrat is besides that. Both sides are playing into that theater because that's also helping, their big image within that sphere. But when it comes to crypto, it's certainly hurting.
Yeah. But I agree with you about Elizabeth Warren. Like, she's got to go. Like, she's such a fraud, man. And again, this is not something against Democrats because we talked about Senator Angela also Brooks, right?
Yeah.
And there's other folks like Richie Torres and Ro Khanna and all these great people who are forward thinking. They get technology much more. Elizabeth Warren, she's just getting her marching orders from a lot of these banking incumbents who are fighting the Clarity Act and the Genius Act. So she's such a fraud. She's totally working with the banks.
She, of course, always has been. It's like, when Coinbase was brought up on all this, stipulation about this bill to begin with. And I love every interview you see the chief operating officer get on Fox Business. He goes, listen, we've been partnered with the big banks for years. And it's so fun. I think he was on Maria Bartiromo on Fox. And she immediately, is going because the banks are concerned about what they're doing. And he squashes it right away. And the same for Elizabeth Warren. It's like, what are you talking about? You've been coupled with them. That's where the insider trading and, all of that stuff. I don't get it.
Yeah. And I keep reminding people, I think it was in 2024 when she had that hearing with Jamie Dimon and, they
Yep.
almost like they were sharing notes. They just went in a certain direction. They both started attacking crypto. And it was like, that's it right there. There's the cards. She's showing her cards. And
No joke.
yeah, so she's got to go, man.
Yeah.
This is just crazy.
Speaking of Jamie Dimon, by the way, did you read there's a huge capital investment that he's talking about. There's a lot of acquisitions coming out of JPMorgan this coming year. So I'm
Mm.
interested to see. That's where I think those infrastructure companies that you and I always talk about, that you're going to see them starting to get more and more absorbed into these major banks. So I'm interested to see what he meant by, he was kind of cryptic, no pun intended there, but he did say there's this massive capital that they're going to allocate towards acquisitions. We'll see.
Oh yeah, and I'm so curious about that because Amanda, we've seen already, and this was mostly last year, acquisitions from both TradFi buying crypto companies and vice versa. So JP Morgan, a powerhouse, they've got the money, they got the resources. Don't be surprised if they go buy a bunch of crypto infrastructure companies because they don't want to go build, right? They're going to go integrate these businesses in and catch up to many of these firms.
Yeah, I mean, they're already, backers, I believe, with Zero Hash. I'm trying to think of another, but they're already backing some major infrastructure companies. So let's see, what happens here.
Yeah, they've already moved some of their tokenized products, their money market funds on public chains. We're actually going to be interviewing one of the developers at Ripple who works on the XRP ledger. And one of the questions we're going to ask him about is, the JP Morgan money market fund being pushed onto the XRP ledger. Obviously, they're doing it on Base and Ondo and much more. So it's so amazing to see these firms building with this technology.
Yeah, definitely is.
So, Amanda, I think that wraps up all our news items, and it's never a dull day or week in crypto. So,
No.
folks, we'll catch you in the next episode and to bring you the latest news items. But Amanda, thank you, and we'll catch you in the next one.
Sounds great. Till next time. Thanks, Tony.